Namaskar friends, welcome to the channel JIV and CIV Made Simple. In this video, we are going to discuss our CCFE certification course in foreign exchange operation, memory based question for the examination which were held on 28th February 2026. So actually 80% of the question were case study based. So our main, I request you to pause the video, think about the answer on your own first and then see the explanation. So let's get started with our first question. So we have a fourth generation starting from Raj Kapoor, who was originally an Indian citizen. So Raj Kapoor was originally an Indian citizen. We need to find out who is not eligible for PIO or OCI status. So let's have a look first of all for the question. So Raj Kapoor, this is the generation number 1, right? Raj Kapoor, generation number 1, right? He was born in India, right? He was born in Amritsar in 1940. And he was before moving to USA in 1965 and become a US citizen in 1970. So that is the case of Raj Kapoor, right? He is married to Elena, who is the spouse number 1. She is a Spanish citizen, right? So Spanish citizen. Now they have a son called Vikram, who is the person B. He is born in New York, US citizen, and Vikram is married to me, a Chinese citizen. Vikram and me has a daughter, Anjali, US citizen. Anjali is married to Omar, a citizen of Pakistan. And Anjali and Omar have a son, Jane. So this is a kind of 4 generation, right? 1, 2, 3 and 4. So the question is, based on the criteria, which of the following individual is not eligible? See the question, not eligible for PIO OCI status. Option number A, Vikram, because he was born in the US and never held an Indian passport. Option B, Elena, as she is a spouse of foreign origin of a person who was citizen of India. Option C, Jane, the great grandchild of Raj Kapoor. Option D, Omar, the spouse of Anjali. So the 4 options have been provided here before you. Let's have a look. So let's first start with the Raj Kapoor. So now think about it. Raj Kapoor was born in India and he was an Indian citizen before moving to USA. So we have to identify which one is not PIO. First of all, let's talk about the Raj. What do you think about Raj? Is he PIO? So he was born in India, born in Amritsar, and he was an Indian citizen before moving to USA. So obviously he qualified for PIO or OCI status. So no confusion about that. What about Vikram? So let's look at Vikram. Vikram was born in America. Clearly they have mentioned there he was born in New York. How can he be PIO? Can he be PIO? Think about Vikram, right? He was born in New York. Clearly mentioned here. Right. So can he be PIO? See, the logic is that was born in, clearly they have given that Vikram was born in America, right? They have mentioned that, Vikram was born in America, USA. So please remember that PIO or OCI, right? PIO or OCI, that depends on where you are born. Right? It does not depend on where you are born. It depends on your father or your grandfather, right, being an Indian citizen at any time. If they have been Indian citizen at any time, you are PIO. So yes, Vikram is 100% eligible. He is because Raj was an Indian citizen, his father was an Indian citizen, so he is 100% eligible. Now let's look at the Elena. What about Elena? Raj is married to Elena. Now Elena is a Raj wife. She is a Spanish citizen. So please, now let's look at whether she fulfill the criteria of being a PIO. Let's talk about the Elena. Think about it. See, the rule is that, what is the rule? Let me write it down. The rule says that, foreign spouse, right? Foreign spouse of an eligible Indian origin person. Foreign spouse of an Indian origin person also become eligible. Please remember, since Elena is married to Raj, right? Elena is married to Raj. So obviously Raj is an Indian origin. As just now we have discussed, right? Actually, Elena, they have a son born in New York, and Vikram, okay, Raj is married to Elena, right? So yes, Elena is also 100% eligible for OCI or PIO. Now, let's look at the next case, Zain, right? Let's talk about the Zain. So who is Zain? Yes. So Zain is the great grandchild, right? Zain is the great grandchild. Vikram is married to me. Me has a daughter, Anjali. Anjali is married to Omar. Then we have Zain. That's called great grandchild. Let's talk to the context of Zain. Right. So great grandchild. So a student often asks, do eligibility go only up to grandchildren? Right? Does eligibility go up to grandchildren? The answer is no. OCI and PIO, right? It cover children. Please understand. Let me write it down. OCI and PIO, it cover children. It cover grandchildren, grandchild, and it cover, great grandchild. Great grandchild. So yes, if you look at the Jain, if we talk about the Jain, right? So Jain is the, great grandson of Raj. Jain is the great grandson of Raj. So yes, he is eligible. Yes, Jain is also eligible. Correct. Jain is also a PIO. Now then come Omar. Right, Omar. Anjali is married to Omar. Omar is the husband of Anjali, and also they have mentioned citizen of Pakistan. See, they have mentioned that Omar is a citizen of Pakistan. Now let's look at whether Omar is a PIO or not. Let's have a look. Now here come the twist. What is the twist? Let's have a look. So let's talk to the context of Omar. Okay, who is the husband of Anjali? Even though Omar is a spouse of US citizen of India. Omar is a spouse of US citizen of India. Right, but there is a strict exclusion rule. Please remember, there is a strict exclusion rule mentioned for OCI, that if a citizen of Pakistan or a citizen of Bangladesh, right, you cannot get OCI or PIO. Very, very important. If you are a citizen of Pakistan or Bangladesh, right, you cannot get this OCI PIO status. So even though Omar is a spouse of PIO, he is not eligible. Omar is not eligible. So now let's look at the option that they have provided. First of all, option number A, Vikram, because he was born in US and never held Indian passport. No, Vikram is eligible for PIO. Just now I told you he is the son of Raj, and Raj was an Indian citizen, so he is also eligible. So Vikram is not the correct answer. Option number B is Elena. Elena, she is a spouse, right? She is a spouse of Raj, so she is also an PIO. Yes, so this is not the correct answer. What about Zain? So Zain is the great grandchild. Yes, she is also PIO, but Omar is not a PIO. So the correct answer is option number D. Right. So remember, there is a formula to remember this. Let me give you a trick to remember this OCI eligibility. How to remember this OCI eligibility? Let's have a look at the trick. The trick is 3C plus 1S is equal to PV. What does it mean? So 3C means what? Child, grandchild, and great grandchild. That's called 3C. And 1S means what? 1S means one spouse. One spouse of foreign origin. So they are PB. PB means what? PB means Pakistan and Bangladesh excluded. Right. 3C plus 1S, sorry, minus PB. Minus, not equal, minus. 3C plus 1S minus PB. Right. So simple. If a person fit in 3C or if a person fit in 1S, they are eligible. But unless they belong to PB, then straight ineligible. So what we learned from this question is that, I hope everything is crystal clear. So we talked about the OCI eligibility, right? So what we learned, that OCI eligibility flow downward through three generation. First of all, we have child, then we have grandchild, then we have great grandchild. And also I told you that please remember, foreign spouse, they are also eligible, subject to condition. And one more thing is that place of birth does not matter. Place of birth does not matter to the context of OCI and PIO. And remember, Pakistan and Bangladesh citizen, they are never eligible. So friends, what we can conclude from this question is that, the question is not tough. Friends, before moving to the next question, let me introduce you to our foreign exchange operation comprehensive course, which is available on our app JIB and CIB Made Simple. In this particular course, you will get a folder for theory plus MCQ plus case study PDF. You will get a folder for RBI recent circular, unit-wise theory video explanation for each and every unit. In the first folder, you get separate folder for theories, MCQs, case studies, previous year question paper. As you can see, in the previous year question paper, you get such kind of question which you have just explaining, starting from February 2025, throughout the year, right? Each and every PDF consists of 20 to 30 questions, good level questions with proper explanation. In the case of theory and MCQ PDF, you get module wise content. There are 5 modules. Inside each module you get unit wise content, unit wise theory, unit wise MCQs. In addition to that, I have added case study PDF through which you can check out what kind of case study, the recent pattern of case study being asked in the examination. In addition to that, I have added module wise quick revision PDF through which you can quickly revise the content in a short span of time. And furthermore, I provide you unit wise theory video explanation where there is a separate previous year question explanation and then videos. Inside videos you get 5 module, each and every unit explanation, each which video consists of 1 hour video along with repetition of the content so that the concept become fixed in your mind. So the entire thing you can get at a very nominal price. For more detail you can check out the link in the description section, or you can WhatsApp me on the contract in January, right, to pay their supplier in March. So they want to pay the supplier in March, so that's why they booked a buy forward contract. But you know what happened? The shipment is delayed. Shipment got delayed, and so they want to extend the contract to June. Okay, shipment got delayed. They want to extend the contract to June, so they have to pay in March. They have entered into a buy forward contract that they will buy a certain currency at this much rate, but because of the delay, right? Export shipment is delayed. That's why they want to extend the contract till the June. Now some data have been given, like original forward rate for March was 1.1250. So that means I think it is dollar versus rupees. Okay, so let me make it clear. And contract amount is $5 lakh. Let's suppose $5 lakh is there, and current spot rate in March is this much, 1.11400. Fine. Now forward premium they have mentioned April, May and June premium has been given 20 point, 25 point, 30 point. So that has to be converted to decimal. This will become like this, 20 BPS you can call it, basic point scale. Now then the margin also they have given, bank commission is 0.05% on the total settlement. Now the question is you have to compute the profit and loss on the March maturity. So this way you have to compute the profit. That is the question. Fine, how much profit or how much loss that the bank customer incur or bank incur, that is the question. So now basically let's first of all let's have a clarity of what is going on here. So this is an importer that's called Global Tech. What he does, she booked a buy forward contract at which rate? 1.1250 rate. Now today spot rate, today market rate has been given. What is the spot rate? 1.1400. Let's have a look. So they have mentioned that it is in March. Actually, this particular settlement was bound to complete in the March, but it does not complete because of the shipment delay. They want to extend the contract. So currently we are in March. So that's why we have taken a spot rate, that is the March rate, which is 1.1400. Now you think about it. So you look at it. There are 2 rates, right? The contract rate is 1.1250. The market rate is 1.1400. So as you can clearly see that market is costlier. See, this is the peculiar case of extension of forward contract. Think about it. This is the case of extension of forward contract. Now the basic logic is that what happened in such case, the bank buy back dollar from the client at this rate. The bank will buy back the dollar from the client at this rate and simultaneously sell in the market at this rate, right? So now think about it. So obviously, since the market is costlier than the booked rate, as you can see, so the booked rate is 1.1250. They will buy at this rate, and the market rate is this. So obviously, importer make a profit. Clearly indication that importer make a profit. Now the question is how much profit? Yes. So to quantify the profit, first of all we have to compute the rate difference. Yes, our main motive is the quantification of the profit. To do that, we have to first compute the rate difference. So how to go about computing the rate difference? That is very simple. First of all, you take this 1.1400 and from that you subtract 1.1250. So that will give us how much? 0.0150. That is the rate difference. So that is the rate difference for $1 for 1 unit. So total profit is how much? So total profit is just 0.0150 multiplied by $5 lakh. So that is how much? That is, I think it is $7,500. That's the total profit. Now I hope it is clear. So what happened, you know, bank buy back dollar from the client at this rate. Bank will buy back the dollar from the client at this rate, right? And simultaneously sell in the market at this rate. So market is higher, so client gain. So importer gain. So first of all, cancellation happened. Remember, in the case of extension, what happened first is called cancellation. That this is called cancellation, right? Bank buy back the dollar from the client. So and you know, simultaneously sell in the market at this rate. So importer gain $7,500 in this transaction. Now then bank will rebook the contract. Bank will rebook the contract. That's called rebooking. So to extend the contract, we must cancel the old March contract and remove the new forward for the June. So the question is, what will be the new forward rate? So I think you are familiar with this equation. New forward rate is equal to a spot plus premium. Spot plus premium. So now we have to compute how much is the premium. How to go about computing it? See, April, May and June. Add the premium for all these three. So that is 0.0020, 0.0025, 0.0030. That become how much? 0.0075. Right. So that is the premium for all these 3 months. So the new forward rate will be how much? Very simple. First of all, you write the spot rate. The spot rate is 1.1400. You take the March spot rate and you add the premium, which is 0.0075. So after addition, that will become 1.1475. Right. Now margin. Yes, we cannot exclude the margin. Margin also have taken into consideration. How to go about taking in the margin? Let's have a look. So now think about it. Margin is also given 0.05%. Obviously, it's a kind of commission that the bank charges for providing the facility. So margin is how much? 0.005, or we can also write it 0.0005. So let's compute the margin amount, and this will be on this contract amount, right? 50,000, $5 lakh. So just compute the margin, which is 0.0005 multiplied by 5 lakh. Okay, so that will be how much? $250. So bank usually adjusts this margin directly from the profit or by loading the rate slightly. So for simplicity, we deduct from the profit. So now final settlement summary. Let's have a look. So see, profit on how much is the profit? Profit on cancellation. First of all, the contract is cancelled. Importer profited from cancellation, that is $7,500. How much is the bank margin? Bank margin they have mentioned, which is negative $250. Why it is negative? I think it is clear, because you know it has to be subtracted. Bank will earn commission. So how much is the net profit for the importer? Most of the time, you know what happened, in very fast manner, we remove, we forget to subtract this. In hurry, we forget to subtract this. Right. This is the difficulty that we face. So net profit will be how much? I think $7,250. So now new forward rate for June is how much? New forward rate for the June is how much? I think they have mentioned. Yes, we have just computed it. New forward rate is just added the premium. Yes, this is 1.1475. So these are the answer. So in the option, they will also give you $7,500. And in hurry, we tick it and think that why not we have been given marks? Because you have ticked the wrong answer. You have not deducted the margin. Margin has to be deducted because the question asks you to compute the net profit, right? So the correct answer is, you know, 7,000. Please understand. Let me show you the calculation. Yes. So the finance element table look like this. So this is the net amount to the client, and this is the new contract rate. So these two will be asked in the examination, either in two separate questions or in a single question. So the main thing is that you should have conceptual clarity. If you don't have that, obviously you will lag behind. Fine. So let me give you a memory trick to remember how to go about solving such kind of problem. So remember, there is a memory trick that you can remember: C plus R plus M. This is the rule for, you know, forward extension. So this is the peculiar case of the case we have discussed is the case of forward extension. So when I see C stands for, you know, cancellation. C means what? Cancellation. So first of all, cancellation. So in the case of cancellation, we have to compute the profit or loss. Sometimes profit may happen, sometimes loss may happen. So the question is how to decide what will happen. See, it is very simple. What we have to do? First of all, we have to write the spot and we have to subtract the old forward rate. Spot minus old forward rate. Fine. So think about it. So suppose it is if they ask to the context of importer, right? So profit or loss is equal to spot minus old forward rate. If it is importer, so into the case of importer, if a spot is larger than forward, like in this case we have just seen, so it is a kind of profit, right? And if it is exporter, if it is spot is less than forward, then we have profit. So depending on whose context it is asked, importer or exporter, you have to decide. Right now, then the next R stand for rebooking. So first of all, we have to cancel, and then you have to rebook. So again, rebook, they will ask you the new forward rate. They will ask you new forward rate. How to go about computing it? It's very simple. A spot plus minus premium, a spot plus premium, or a spot minus discount. So depending on what they have given in the question, you have to compute the new forward rate. And lastly, M is the margin. Yes, margin is also given in the question. So margin is always deducted, always reduce. Margin is a kind of commission that the bank earned, so bank will always reduce the margin. So just remember the formula. First of all, you have to cancel, then you have to rebook, and then you have to deduct the margin, CRM. So what we learned from this question is that, let me just give you a few things to remember, that importer booked a buy forward, spot is higher, so importer profited. First of all, we have to calculate the cancellation profit. How much is the cancellation profit, right? A spot minus forward into amount. Then we have to calculate the new forward rate, right? And then we have to calculate the net profit after deducting the margin. I hope everything is crystal clear. So this particular table summarizes all the things that we have done here. Now let's switch our focus to the question number 3. Let's have a look. Very good question it is. So basically, this case cover both foreign exchange, two concept: forex forward contract extension and UCP 600. Let's have a look. So let's break this down step by step. So what is happening here? Energy Corp, they have booked a buy forward in January to buy 1 lakh, I think this is $10 lakh, $10 lakh at a rate of 82.50 INR per dollar, right? And what happened, in the early March, the Energy Corp learned the shipment of coal will be delayed. So they request their bank to extend the forward contract for 3 months. So the current forward rate has been given, and 3-month premium also have been given. Fine. I think this much is okay. Now what happened, the discrepancy is that, that LC, right? When the coal finally arrive in June, the letter of credit term states sulfur content must be below 1%, right? The exporter present a certificate of analysis showing 0.8% sulfur. However, Energy Corp independent port test so the actual sulfur content is 1.2. Now this is a big discrepancy. So the question is, based on FX extension in March, what is the profit and loss, and what is the new forward rate for the June, right? And the part B is the bank obligated to pay the exporter in June? Yes, option B says no, because the goods are defective. Yeah, B says because the document comply with LC. B says yes, because the bank deal in document, not the good. No. Very good question. It combined both this concept. Very good concept. So friends, can me. So in this case, this is exporter, right? Extension case, again it is importer, right? Energy Corp build buy a forward contract at 2.50. So let me write it down here. Let's summarize. So basically, a spot they have mentioned. How much is the spot? 83.20. As you can see, a spot rate they have given. How much? Here you can see current spot rate is 83.20 INR per dollar. And what is the forward premium? It is 0.45. So the contract was booked at 82.50 for maturity on 15th March, and on 15th March, the spot is 83.20. So as you can see, clearly it is visible that booked rate is 82.50 and the spot rate is market rate is 83.20. So obviously a spot is larger than forward. A spot is larger than, actually a spot is the market rate. A spot is larger than booked rate. So it clearly indicates that importer is at profit. Importer is at gain, right? So how much is the profit? So first of all, compute it per dollar. So per dollar it is 83.20 minus 82.50, which is 0.70 INR per dollar. And how much is the total amount? Total amount is 10 lakh, right? So importer gain 0.70 per dollar. So just multiply 0.70 with 10 lakh. So that will give you the entire profit. Now, what is the net forward rate for June? So you take this 83.20, which is the current spot rate, and add the premium, which is 0.45, right? So that will give you 83.65. So I hope the part 1 we have answered, right? Part one we have already answered. that what is the profit and loss to be settled and what is the new forward rate. This thing we have answered. Now part B. So part B is LC discrepancy under UCP 600. So LC says that sulfur content should be below 1%. Let me highlight it. So LC term says that sulfur content must be below 1%. Exporter submit the certificate showing 0.8% sulfur, but buyer independent test shows the actual sulfur content is 1.2. Should the bank pay? Now, to answer this question, let us revisit our article number 5. Our article number 5 of the UCP 600. So what does it say? So it says that, bank deal in the document. Bank always deal in the document. Bank never deals in the goods. Right? Please understand. Bank always deal in the document. Bank never deal in the good. So remember, if the document comply, in that case, bank has to pay. Bank must pay. This is the clear rule to remember. If the document comply, bank must pay. Now, one more thing is that this article number 5 says that, physical quantity is not checked by bank. Bank never check the physical quantity. And also bank cannot wait for test report. Bank will not wait for, test report. Fine. So dispute over quality is buyer versus seller, not the bank. So quality dispute, bank has nothing to do with the quality dispute. So even though the actual sulfur is 1.2% as tested by the, Energy Corp independent port, the bank must pay because the document so. See, bank have to deal in the document, that's it. So the document so 0.8% sulfur, so bank have to make the payment. See, basically what is happening, that most of the people think that this question is very tough. Actually, it is not tough. This question we have already discussed in another form. But what IIBF have done, they have changed the form. They have changed the form of question. But the basic concept is the same. That bank article number 5 of UCP 600, which says that, bank deal in the document, bank never deal in the goods. If you know it, whatever be the question, whatever be the format of question, apply the concept and you will get the answer. So that's called application part. So what is the correct answer? No, the because of the so bank have to pay. Bank is obligated to pay. Right. I think it is option number 2. Right. So remember, bank check document, bank never check delivery. Very, very important. Now let's have a look at the question number 4 of today's session. So I think this is the question. It's a very good question it is. So basically in this question, we understand the drawback and MCQs. So we are given business unit and export. What is the name of export? The name of export is Vivid Export. And 4 business unit they have mentioned. Right? What are the business unit name? A, B, C, and D. Fine. Sector they have also given handicraft, electronic, chemical, gems, and jewelry. So we have 4 business unit under Vivid Export. Each unit import raw material. They pays 10% custom. Right? Let me show you. Each unit imported raw material, paying 10% custom duties, and export the finished goods. Our task is to identify which are eligible for duty drawback under section 75 of the Custom Act plus FTP guideline. So there are the 4 cases they have mentioned: import value, FOB value, other data they have mentioned, and based on FTP and Custom Act, which are eligible to claim drawback under section 75. Option A, B, C, and D, C and D, B, C, and D, C only. So before answering this question, let's first of all clarify the concept of the so-called duty drawback, DBK. In short, we call it DBK. So what happened during duty drawback? Let's understand. So if your concept of duty drawback is clear, you can easily answer it. So what happened when the exporter import raw material. Suppose there is an exporter, he is importing raw material, right? He is importing raw material. He is paying custom duty. Fine. And export the final good. After paying, he export the good. Fine. So the government give back that drawback, the duty they have paid earlier. So here, government drawback. Drawback what? Government drawback the custom duty they have paid earlier. But only if 3 conditions are satisfied. Let's look at these 3 very, very important conditions. So what are those 3 conditions which are satisfied when government will give? The first condition is that positive value addition. What does it mean? So the export value, please understand that the amount of export they have done, the value of that export should be greater than the import value. Obviously, they are importing the raw material and they are exporting the finished goods. So the value of the finished goods should be larger than the value of the raw material they are importing. Otherwise, the government suspect that over invoicing or loss making product. This is the first condition to satisfy, to get a duty drawback. The second condition is that no double scheme. What does it mean when I say no double scheme? Let's have a look. It simply means that, you know, that if the exporter already use advance authorization, so there are other scheme, right? If the exporter already use advance authorization, EPCG, another scheme, EOU or SEZ or MEIS or RODTEP, if exporter use any of these, they cannot claim duty drawback again. So no double scheme. The third condition is super important. Let's have a look. What does the third condition say? It says that sector rule. Yes, it's all about, you know, it's called, you know, sector rule. Let's have a look. So what does the rule say? That industry like, you know, gems and, you know, jewelry, industry like gems and jewelry, they have, you know, they have special norms, fine, but are generally eligible unless they use duty free gold or replenishment scheme. Fine. Now let's look at the option. Let's look at the option that they have provided. So let's look at the unit number A, that is the handicraft. So now in the case of handicraft, import value is given 5 lakh rupees, export value FOB they have given 4,80,000. So you can easily see that export value is smaller than the import value, right? Export value is less than the import value. So what do you think about it? So if you import raw material worth 5 lakh and export sell the finished goods for 4.8 lakh, you are exporting at a loss. Government will definitely not refund duty in such case. So this is wrong. What about electronic? So this unit use they use advance authorization. Clearly they have mentioned. So if you never paid duty, what will the government draw back? Duty. Actually under advance authorization, what happened? You know, you do not pay duty free. So when I say, please understand, what is the meaning of this term advance authorization? Let's make it clear. So advance authorization means zero duty. Import are duty free. Fine. From the beginning. So if you never paid any duty have not been paid by you, so what will the government drawback? Since you have not paid any duty, so what will be the government drawback? Nothing. Zero duty paid, zero refund. You will not get any refund. Fine. So this is called, you know, double dipping prohibition. This is called, please understand this very important thing I am telling you. This is called double dipping prohibition. Right. Now unit number C. What about the unit number C? This is all about the chemicals. See, CIF is import value is 8 lakh, FOB value is 12 lakh, right? So positive value addition, no scheme conflict. So they paid 8 lakh duty on tax import. On 8 lakh duty on import. They exported goods worth 12 lakh. This is a healthy profitable export. So government will refund the duty. So yes, C case is eligible. What about D case, gems and jewelry? So CIF is 20 lakh and FOB value is 25 lakh. Obviously here also we have positive value addition. But one thing is that I told you now the third case, that is the sector rule. Let's revisit that section. What I told you about sector rule, that gems and jewelry sector, they have special wastage norms. Right. They have special wastage norms. Please understand. But still eligible unless duty free gold from nominated agency was replenishment was used. See, they have a wastage norms, but they are still eligible unless there are two conditions. What are the two conditions? That, you know, duty free gold from nominated agency was used. So if duty free gold were used, then they cannot take help of the drawback. Or the second condition is that replenishment scheme was used. If the replenishment scheme was used, they cannot use this. But gems and jewelry, they have a special wastage norm. So in this particular case, this question clearly stated that a standard export, so fully eligible. So yes, C and D are fully eligible for duty drawback. Fine. So what is the correct answer to this question? Yes, 2 number option is correct. I hope everything is crystal clear. So friends, what we learned, let me just summarize. There is a memory trick you can just remember to answer such duty drawback question. Remember, V plus S is equal to DBK formula. What is V? So V means, you know, value addition positive. That means FOB, free on board value, should be larger than CIF value. CIF is what, you know, seller pay for cost and insurance freight. Seller means what? Exporter. right? Let me just revisit this CIF. Right, CIF means, you know, import value, just that the seller have paid, right? We obviously exporter have paid, right? And export value is the FOB, free on board. So now value added positive, and S means what? S means, you know, no is other scheme used. So other schemes should not be there, like, you know, advanced authorization scheme should not be there. If both condition passes, please think about it. If this condition pass, this condition pass, in that case we can say that, you know, duty drawback is allowed, right? So remember the simple line, loss export no drawback, duty free import no drawback. So what we learned